So, how do you follow up one of the most groundbreaking and fascinating seasons of television ever made and deliver something that equals, if not improves upon, the quality and impact of that season? Well, if you're the writers of the second season of The Wire, you take everything that worked in season 1 and you throw that shit out the window like those white guys did Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop. Season 2 of The Wire seems to be very high on the list of things that were not well received in their time, but have come to age very well and are now very highly regarded and acclaimed by fans. As all of you who have watched my season 1 retrospective of The Wire probably know, I didn't start watching The Wire until very recently. So I wasn't there when millions of viewers were disappointed watching season 2 air weekly 20 years ago. So long before I even started watching the show, I had heard about how divisive and controversial of a season this was. Some said it was a boring departure from what made the show great. Some said it was secretly the most important and well-written season of the whole series. And a lot of people said that they hated it at first, but learned to like it more and more as the show went on. Needless to say, I was incredibly curious to watch season 2 for myself and see what all the hubbub was about. So, now that I've watched season 2 of The Wire like 4 times now to make this video, how do I feel about it? All things considered, with the entire show in context, I think I have to say, it is probably one of my least favorite seasons of the show.
What did you say, nigga?
Move this man!
Boo!
I hate you, nigga. Let's die.
But before you pelt me with digital tomatoes in the comments, I want to make it clear that picking my least favorite season of The Wire is like picking my least favorite of my theoretical but most likely illegitimate children. The worst season of The Wire is still far better than most shows' best season. And even though I don't hold season 2 in the same regard as some of the other seasons, I still really like it. And just like season 1, I still think it's incredibly relevant to our modern day lives. And as a desperate effort to legitimize my stance on this, I want to point out that I'm not alone in being disappointed by season 2 of The Wire. David Simon, the creator of the show, even said that certain cast members themselves were upset with him while reading through the script for the first time.
When we went to that second season, and so much of the second season was devoted to the death of work in America and the decline of the working class in the port, Michael looked at the first scripts and he came into my office and he said, why are you running away from the show we were building in first season? And so I realized I have to talk him through what the plan is and why it's the plan and why I think it's the right thing to do.
A lot of great shows and movies get their sequels wrong. Following up a home run is really hard to do. And in a lot of aspects, if your next entry isn't a better home run than the previous home run, then people will still view it as inferior to the first. Season 2 of The Wire is not a failure by any means. It still does everything that season 1 did in regards to illuminating the issues with certain societal systems and how those systemic issues can have meaningful and devastating effects on the people within society. It just completely switches the systems and the people that the story is focused on. Carver and Herc were their usual useless selves, but I still think they were more interesting in season 1. Lester did his usual human-computer routine, but he lacked a lot of the cool, mysterious side that gave him so much aura in the previous season. We did get more Bunk in this season, but a lot of the time he was partnered up with Beatty, who is still just a fine enough white woman, whatever. Daniels and Kima had their issues with their wives, but Daniels was definitely less of a focus of this season, and even though there were some all-time great McNulty crash outs earlier in the season,
spot on.
he still felt like more of a side character than he was in season 1. I don't know, the cop side of things just always felt kind of boring in season 2. It wasn't bad, but definitely a clear step down from the first season. Not to mention characters like Bubbles and Johnny were so absent that I would legitimately forget that they were in the show at times. And when it comes to House Barksdale and Omar, outside of Dee's murder, which was very compelling and one of my favorite moments of the show, you can tell that this whole season was really just a setup for what goes down in season 3 with Avon, Stringer, and everybody else involved. And there were some other noteworthy moments in season 2, like Omar punking the shit out of Maury Levy in court with the "I got the shotgun, you got the briefcase" line.
You are a parasite who leeches off
Just like you,
the
man.
culture of drugs. Excuse me? What?
I got the shotgun. Got the briefcase. It's on the game though, right?
There's also the shootout between House Barksdale and those random dealers, the introductions of Brother Muzone and Bunny Colvin, and of course McNulty's fake British accent, which is funny because Dominic West, who plays McNulty, is actually British as hell.
You see my eyes, yeah, I seen a lot. I could cry, but I grin a lot. One life, say we live it up. I'm trying to fly like a guillemot.
Now listen! That's called motherfucking bars, nigga! You know nothing about that!
But when I thought about what really made this season so great, it wasn't the cops, it wasn't House Barksdale or Omar, and it definitely wasn't anything else from season 1. It was the tragic downfall of the Sobotka clan and the death of the middle class of America that really sold me on this season. So in this video, we're going to break down the key events and character moments like I always do, but I'm going to specifically focus on the Sobotka storyline and how their family tragedy correlates to the world that we currently live in. So let's get started with analyzing The Wire's brilliantly polarizing second season. Actually, before we get started with the whole episode breakdown thing that I usually do, I want to let you guys know that I have started a Patreon where you can donate to the Chill Review channel by joining whichever tier you prefer. And look, different tiers have different benefits. Benefits such as getting early access to videos, being able to vote on video topics that you want me to cover in future videos, and getting shoutouts at the end of videos. So if you're interested in any of these benefits, or if you just want to donate because you really like the channel, the link will be in the description. Or if it's easier for you, you can just become a member on YouTube by clicking this button here. Either way, I appreciate you all for watching these videos. It really does mean the world to me. Now, let's get back to the video. So as I alluded to earlier, it might come as a surprise to first-time viewers, but the main focus of The Wire's second season is actually this balding little Polish gnome of a man named Frank Sobotka. And if there was ever a motherfucker who looked like a Frank, it's this dude. Frank Sobotka is the head treasurer and union leader of the IBS Local 1514 in Baltimore, Maryland. And if you don't know what that means, don't worry, because I also don't really know what that means either.
I don't have a clue what you're talking about, Phil. Not a fucking clue.
But from what I can tell, Frank basically runs a crew of dock workers on a specific Baltimore port and oversees the money and the material shipped in and out of his location. Where season 1 focused on the inner workings and politics of the police department and the drug game, while illuminating the fascinating dichotomies and similarities between both sides of the drug war, season 2 focuses on the failing blue-collar worker and the seemingly never-ending and gradually worsening struggle of America's middle and lower middle classes. And therein, that clumsily written slop of a sentence, lies the issue with season 2 of The Wire. No matter how good or bad of a season of television that you think season 2 is, it is impossible to overlook the fact that this is not the same show that season 1 was. The characters are different, the subject matter is different, the scale and the locations are different. Season 2 of The Wire is still a crime drama, but the crimes and the criminals depicted on screen are completely different. It's like going from Law & Order SVU to Law & Order UK, which I assume is just a bunch of stabbings and petticoat thefts from men in wigs. I don't know much about British culture. Funnily enough, season 2 of The Wire reminds me a lot of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and full disclosure, I'm not really a big Star Wars fan, so anyone who wants to start some kind of crazy debate war in the comments over Star Wars, fine, but leave me out of it. I don't really care that much. To put it plainly, The Last Jedi is a decent movie, but it is a horrible sequel. Instead of doing what a great sequel should do and make the original better simply by existing, it instead makes its previous entry in the series basically meaningless and unimportant in the grand scheme of the overall narrative, which is obviously not good. I'm not saying the second season of The Wire is as egregious of an example of this as Star Wars Episode 8 is, but there is definitely a big element of this is not the show that I watched last season. And I think it's very fitting that the first of the character quotes that we get in this season kind of alludes to this. This message, and season 2 as a whole, is sort of a warning or line in the sand to let us know that last season was last season, and this new season is about to be something completely different. I can't fault the season 1 lovers who hate season 2 because season 2 of The Wire is not the Wire that they fell in love with. It should not be expected of a fandom to accept and adore drastic changes to the art that they like. But to the people who are caught up in the old days of how things used to be, I'll let my guy Slender Chuck give you some very important game.
If this was the old days?
Yeah, now, well, the thing about the old days, they the old days.
And now that we've gotten through the longest tangential tirade of all time, let's actually talk about Frank Sobotka, his son Ziggy, and his nephew Nicky Sobotka. Frank Sobotka is a classic northeastern white American man. Tough, bummy looking, blue collar, hard working, blunt as a baseball bat, and loves drinking beers and talking shit with the guys. As someone who grew up and spent almost all my life in the northeast of America and had a good amount of middle to lower middle class white friends, Frank Sobotka is like 70% of the white fathers that I knew back in the day.
Hey, enough talk. Some of yous got shifts to work in the morning. The rest of yous need to be drunk. I'll drink to that.
But Frank Sobotka is much more than just an old school blue collar father in a crumbling city. He's also a symbolic representation of that dying American middle class and the immense pressures and struggles that men like him have to face in the modern age of America. And just so we're clear, this came out about 20 years ago, and wouldn't you know, it's still eerily relevant today. There's a certain belief that almost borders on myth about America that has existed for literal centuries at this point. The idea that the true American spirit can be found in the everyday blue-collar worker. It's factual that this country was largely built on blue-collar labor and American industry, but the idea that dock workers, factory workers, coal miners, etc. will survive through trying times and, more specifically, will survive the ever-evolving technological revolution has been proved false time and time again over the last 40 years or so. Right or wrong, for better or for worse, people like Frank Sobotka have slowly been getting phased out of the modern American workforce. They will most likely never be completely erased, but it's clear that due to outsourcing, advancements in tech, and other various factors outside of their control, the hard-working, pull-yourself-up-by-your-bootstraps American lifestyle is dead as disco. Or, for a more modern comparison, dead as rock and roll. Is dubstep dead? Are the kids no longer stepping on dubs? I don't know, I'm getting old. We'll definitely get more into Frank and his hopeless fight to save his union, save his way of life, and save his family as the video goes on. But for now, this scene serves as a pretty solid introduction to the type of man that Frank is, and the type of man that he was when he didn't have the weight of the world bearing down on him from all angles.
Blue steel, gentlemen.
For Christ's sake.
3.5 inches of hard blue steel.
We also meet Frank's son Ziggy and his nephew Nicky in this sequence. We see Frank and Nicky talking like two old pals while on the docks, and you can really tell that Frank is proud of Nicky and trusts him with the family business, even asking him to go see the Greek about something coming in.
You need to go see the Greek and get a number. He's got one on the way.
Today?
Tomorrow. The Atlantic Light over at North Point.
At first glance, you wouldn't be crazy to be convinced that Nicky is actually Frank's son based on this conversation. But unfortunately for Frank, that's not the case.
You clock out today, you leave your box, don't ever come the fuck back. You hear me, Zig? You're fired.
He ain't fired, man.
No?
That's his father.
The fact that Frank fires Ziggy for his incompetence, only for another one of the dock workers to basically infer that Ziggy will never really be fired because Frank is his father, is a brief insight into how their father-son dynamic has probably always worked. Frank lets Ziggy do as he pleases without any real repercussions because he's too busy with work, leading Ziggy to become an insufferable and goofy man-child who also happens to be the absolute worst character in the show. And since I just let the cat out of the bag, I guess I'll just get this out of the way now. Ziggy Sobotka is my least favorite character in this entire series.
Dad, when I was... Jesus, Pop, what was that for? What can I say?
Ziggy is stupid, childish, obnoxious, a liability in almost every facet of life. He's a liar, a thief, he's physically weak, he's mentally weak, he makes irrational decisions way too often, and he's a pest and a parasite to almost everyone he knows. In short, he sucks, man. He sucks.
What can I say?
He has almost no redeeming qualities, and unlike many other characters in the show, he absolutely deserves everything he gets in the end. But just because I hate him, that doesn't mean I don't feel bad for him. We'll obviously get into the rest of his tragic story eventually, but for now, I just want to say RIP to the god James Ransone. There have been many deaths among the cast of The Wire over the years, and December of 2025 saw the passing of both James and Isaiah Whitlock Jr. within 2 weeks of each other. I might hate the character of Ziggy Sobotka, but in a way, he feels like he was meant to be hated. And he could have only been so hated by myself, and I'm sure so many other fans of the show, because the actor who played him did the character so much justice.
He wasn't saying, please don't shoot me. It was more begging. Double G. He's begging me.
But that takes care of the father and the son. What about the nephew/cousin, Nicky Sobotka? Nicky is honestly very hard to describe. He's obviously smarter than his dumbass cousin Ziggy, and in certain respects, he makes slightly better decisions than his Uncle Frank here and there. But he also allows his own greed and ambition to poison his better judgment, and much of his tragedy is also self-inflicted. Nicky strikes me as one of those peaked in high school types. You know, the guy who was tall, good-looking, naturally cool and likable, but never really applied himself to anything and never really made much of himself after all those positive traits stopped defining his success. He's got a good enough head on his shoulders to stay above water, even with a baby mama and a small daughter, but he's desperate to find a way out of his impoverished environment and make something of himself. Frank is a man who's too far gone and too deeply entrenched in his own sins to find a way to freedom. Nicky is young and green enough to still be outside of that point of no return, but the rest of season 2 depicts Nicky slowly approaching that line and having to decide if he's willing to cross it just like his uncle to get what he wants.
What, you think this shit is easy, huh? You think it's fucking easy? You try living on 5 or 6 days a month, see how fast it puts you on your ass.
And I know that was a lot of summary for an introduction scene, but the most important takeaway that you can have from my ramblings about the Sobotka clan is that this family is basically fucked.
On a scale from 1 to 10, my friend, you're fucked.
Their industry is fucked, their family dynamic is fucked, and seeing as they represent the middle class of America, that pretty much means the middle class of America is also fucked.
You're a Sobotka.
Fucked is what I am.
Frank pays a visit to his local church and asks the priest to grant him some face time with the senator so that Frank can get approval for more money and resources for the docks. But to ensure that the church will assist in getting Frank into the rooms that he needs to be in, he also gives the church a beautiful stained glass mural. And I know it might sound crazy, but this one small gesture of pay for play, favor for favor, or whatever you want to call it, is basically the inciting incident that sets off the entire police side of this story.
How much of them dock boys offer for this spot? I can match you.
Offerings are confidential, Stan.
I'm sorry, Father. Who came to you with the offer?
Francis Sobotka.
Valchek was seen here and there throughout season 1, but he was never really that important to mention. But seeing as season 2 focuses heavily on the whites, he's a much more important character in this season for many dumb reasons. Stan Valchek also wants to offer a mural to the priest, but he quickly realizes that not only has Frank already given a mural to the church, but he's also paid a lot more than Stan can. And this makes Stan Valchek wonder how a dock worker could get that type of money in this economy. And just like that, we got some good old-fashioned Polish beef.
Watch closely. You're about to experience a
Polish
moment.
You don't want my finger in your eye. You better do what's right here.
My old man always said you were a half-assed punk over at Holy Redeemer as a kid. And my sister said you were a pain-in-the-ass pest at all them CYO dances when none of the girls would even look at you.
Fuck you and your window.
And just as a quick side note, as a black man who tries to mind his black-ass business as much as possible, I'm admittedly not too familiar with Polish American culture. I have some Polish friends, and I know the Polish greats like Joanna Jędrzejczyk, John Krasinski, Frederick Chopin, Marie Curie, and I can't forget the Polish goat himself, but I don't know much about Polish people outside of that. Is Polish beef common? Like, are there Polish people always keeping each other down like crabs in a barrel, or are they usually uplifting towards their community? How's the food? Are there any stereotypes that are true, untrue? All my Polish soldiers in the comments, sound off for me, will you? I want to know what you know. This whole situation leads Frank Valchek to investigate where Frank's union money is coming from, and he asks Burrell to set up a specific detail to catch Frank doing whatever Valchek thinks he might be doing. It's good to see taxpayer funds going towards solving the petty beefs of old Polish dudes. Nicky reluctantly takes Ziggy with him to meet with the Greeks like his uncle asked, and it goes about as terribly as you would expect.
You want some coffee? Bye.
Nah, I'm good.
Actually, what kind of pie you got?
Hey, Zig. Shut the fuck up, huh?
The Greek squad is made up of a few different members. First, there's Spiros, who basically serves as the main point of contact for all business. Then there's Sergey, who serves as the muscle, George, who runs an electronics store where the product is shipped to after it's taken off the docks, Eitan, who handles the drugs, and of course there's the Greek himself, who runs the whole operation from the shadows. And by from the shadows, I mean he just sits at the counter there and reads a newspaper while everyone else talks business. Yeah, he's actually way more important than that. He's the man behind the curtain, the kingpin who really runs the drug trade and I'm sure many other illegal trades in the city of Baltimore.
And of course, I'm not even Greek.
As we come to find out gradually throughout the season, the Greeks aren't just involved with the docks and with the Sobotkas. They're also one of the major forces behind bringing drugs into Baltimore, which means that they're also involved with House Barksdale and their industry. On the surface, Season 2 doesn't have much to do with the same kind of crime and topics of Season 1. But at the end of the day, just like with everything with The Wire, it turns out that everything truly is connected, and to quote Lester's evergreen line from earlier in the show,
"We're building something here, Detective. We're building it from scratch. All the pieces matter."
You don't know any of this when you first meet the Greeks in this scene, but all of this is slowly revealed throughout Season 2, and the scale of the Greeks' power and control over this illegal operation becomes both impressive and also terrifying. And here's little Nicky Sobotka getting caught up in their very dangerous web, running favors for his uncle. Surely he won't get caught up in this lifestyle and take things way too far.
Surely.
We then go back to the docks, where something in the plan between the Sobotkas and the Greeks has gone horribly wrong, and the shipment container that was supposed to be taken is not being taken. While they try to figure out how to handle the unaccounted for tank, Beatty stumbles upon it, and unfortunately for literally everybody in the show, also stumbles upon the 13 dead women who lie inside the tank. Yeah, that's probably gonna cause some issues. We then go to Frank, who confronts the Greeks about the girls in the tanks, and let's just say he's a little bent out of shape over it.
This was a mistake.
A mistake? They fucking died in that can while this stupid son of a bitch sat there with his dick in his hands.
Spiros reminds Frank that they have a don't ask, don't tell agreement about what he's helping them ship in those cans. But Frank says from here on out, if there are bodies in those cans, then he needs to know. There's also this very uncomfortable scene of Nicky and his baby mama discussing the future of their relationship over a haircut.
I'm telling you, as soon as I start getting more hours, the first thing I do is get my own place. You want to move in with me? Great. You don't want to? At least I did my goddamn best.
And this scene really sets up a big part of Nicky's motivation throughout the season. He really wants to do right by his girl and by his daughter, like any decent man would. The problem is that for Nicky, the fastest way to do that is to dive headfirst into a world of organized crime and corruption.
I can't keep waking up in the morning not knowing if I'm gonna get paid. I got a kid, right? I got a fucking kid and a girl that wants to get married, for Christ's sake.
For the approximate 10 women or so who actually watch my videos, I just want to let you all know that if your loser boyfriend starts talking like Nicky does in this scene about how he's gonna magically provide for you and get you whatever you want, and then he actually starts providing for you and getting you whatever you want out of nowhere, he 100% is up to some sort of illegal activity. And this will either get you killed, arrested, kidnapped, or put into witness protection. Careful out there, ladies. The first clip we see of Frank Sobotka in this episode is him at a big important meeting with a bunch of city officials responsible for voting on whether or not his union will get the funding and projects that they need to survive. He's there with his lobbyist who's advising him on who to sweet talk and how to get on the good side of the right people to make sure his union gets what they need. And oh shit, it's good old Clay Davis. It's so funny to me to see Frank in this environment with a suit and tie trying to fit in with the other suits when just one look at his greasy, disheveled face tells you that this world is not where he really belongs or feels comfortable in. Ziggy and Nicky make a plan to boost a bunch of cameras from a tank on the docks and sell it to Greek George for a 20% split. This ordinarily wouldn't be too important, but the thing is, they never really tell Frank about this big-brained plan. So episode 4 starts with Frank meeting Nicky before work and basically chewing his ass out for going behind his back to do the camera heist.
You know the Dasco line's a cunt hair away from taking their business down in Norfolk? I don't need this shit right now.
I do, Uncle Frank. I need the money.
God damn it! You ain't hearing me!
What, you think this shit is easy, huh?
They say necessity is the mother of invention, and desperation is the progenitor of poor decisions. We've all done, or at least thought about doing, very stupid and dangerous things when our backs were against the wall and we drastically needed a change in our lives. It's human nature to panic and not think clearly under extreme pressure. That's what desperation and a lack of money and power can do to our minds. It makes us think that we have to risk it all and make the craziest decisions possible to escape that struggle. Frank and Nicky are two men who are in desperate need of money and opportunity. One of them had the money and opportunity and is doing everything he can to hold on to it before it slips away. But the other has never had either and is willing to do whatever it takes in order to attain them for the first time. It really is a fascinating dichotomy that these two characters have, and watching them both try to avoid the pitfalls of their shared struggle is both captivating and tragic to see unfold.
It's now or never for us. I got no choice.
Today we got ships, Uncle Frank. Today. The writing's on the fucking wall.
Episode 5 starts with a very funny scene of Ziggy trying to unsuccessfully press a Wigger drug dealer named Frog for some money that he owes him.
But when I roll back past here tomorrow, money's gonna be right. Or you're gonna see. You're gonna see who you fucking with. I look like a fucking punk.
Only for Ziggy himself to be pressed by Method Man from the Wu-Tang Clan for the money that Zig owes him. And yeah, I know Method Man's name in the show is really Cheese, but I can't help but laugh every time that I see him in this series. Anyway, Cheese threatens to kill Ziggy if he doesn't get him the money by the end of the week. Nicky confronts Cheese about the money that Ziggy owes him, and of course he made sure to bring a tough-looking black guy with him for good measure. Cheese ends up giving Ziggy another week to pay off the debt because he respects Nicky's heart, but he also sorta burns Ziggy's car to a crisp.
Good news and bad, Zig. Still gonna kill you. They're gonna wait a week.
What the fuck can be good?
Can cancel your car insurance.
Nicky goes to the Greeks and asks them to help get Ziggy out of his beef with Cheese. And oh boy, do they definitely help.
Him we don't know. But the one he called boss, him we know.
The episode ends with Nicky agreeing to get a load of chemicals off the docks for the Greeks without his uncle knowing, which didn't really end too well the last time he did that, but I'm sure it'll be fine this time. They offer to pay Nicky and Ziggy half in cash and half in dope. Nicky agrees to this, but understandably refuses to let Ziggy handle the drugs, considering how badly Ziggy f***ed up the last package with Cheese.
Oh, Zig, I got it.
Nicky, you don't know.
You hear me? I said I fucking got this one. You stay at home and watch cartoons. Let me handle this shit for the both of us, all right?
Beatty and Bunk go down to the docks and start handing out grand jury summons to make the dock workers testify about what they know regarding the dead girls. But in defiance of this, Frank drops one of my favorite speeches from the season about the resilience of the dock workers and his union.
You want us to dance with a grand jury? We will. What do you say, Johnny? What do you say to any question?
I take the Fifth Commandment.
And if they offer you immunity to testify against your union brothers?
I don't remember.
We're here through Bobby Kennedy, Tricky Dick Nixon, Ronnie the Union Buster Reagan, and half a dozen other sons of bitches. We'll be here through your weak bullshit, no problem.
Union workers fighting for their rights is one of the most American battles that I can think of. I said earlier that Frank Sobotka is a symbol of that same American blue-collar worker and the entire history and struggle that they have all faced. And more specifically, he is a symbol of how that is all slowly dying out in this modern world. With that in mind, it makes this indignant tirade about how they've all survived so much before this and his assurance that he'll survive this as well, all the more tragic and futile. We also get one of the few scenes of Ziggy and his dad Frank actually talking to each other. Wow, healthy communication. Who would have thought that these two were capable of it? From this convo, we can tell that Frank was at least moderately abusive to Ziggy growing up. And even though it was obvious before, it's even more obvious now that these two definitely don't have a good relationship with one another, but they can at least smile and reminisce about the good old days.
So tell me, Mr. Back in the Day, the fuck are we doing down here with the war frats in the middle of the goddamn night?
Beats the fuck out of me.
We only see Ziggy and Frank have a conversation like this 3 times throughout the season. Once at the beginning, once in the middle, and one final time at the end. I like how the writers made these conversations feel like bookmarkers to the beginning, middle, and end of the story. And the nature of the convos sort of mirror the tone of the narrative at those points in time. Like the first convo was Frank being mad at Ziggy for being a fuck up, but it's played off as a lighthearted moment because things aren't too bad yet. The conversation in the middle, right here, is clearly serious, but it ends with a smile, showing that even though things aren't great right now, there's still hope that they could get better later. And we'll get to their final conversation soon, but as anyone who has seen this show knows, things did not get any better from here. Frank and another member of the Docks go to a meeting discussing the future of industrial technology, but it becomes pretty clear to them that these machines and systems are not being made to help them in their work, but to just flat out replace them. Again, the writing's on the wall, Uncle Frank. Frank has another meeting with his lobbyist after the lobbyist fails to get the canal for the union. And Frank gives yet another important speech about how the entire way of life and way of earning a living for his people, the middle-class blue-collar American worker, are both being erased, and Frank feels powerless to stop it.
Talking history, right? I'm talking now. But after the horror movie I seen today, robots. Piers full of robots. My kid'll be lucky if he's even punching numbers 5 years from now. It breaks my fucking heart that there's no future for the Sobotkas on the waterfront.
This kind of reminds me of a few years ago when all of those American coal miners were fighting to keep their jobs and be able to keep working in the mines, despite all of the black lung and physical injuries that they were suffering, because to them, the mines were the only way of life that they knew. But despite this, the world just sort of laughed at them and belittled them because their industry was actively holding the world back from progressing into cleaner and more environmentally friendly forms of labor. It's one of those things where it's sad to watch people get left behind by a world that doesn't need them anymore. But also, sometimes we have to accept that we can't fight the future, and we shouldn't waste our lives trying. I also like this scene here of the dock workers at the bar rushing back to the docks even though they're not on the clock once they hear that one of their fellow workers has gotten injured on the job. Similarly to how all of the cops rallied together when Keeman got shot in season 1, it shows that there's a real brotherhood and camaraderie between the men on the docks, and it also serves as a reminder of how dangerous this work can be. The men and women who do these kinds of jobs are risking their lives and their bodies to make an average living, and even that average living is no longer guaranteed. There's also this really weird thing in this episode where Ziggy buys a duck for some reason and he brings it to the bar, and then later the duck dies because it drinks too much alcohol.
That boy ain't right.
This fucking bird couldn't hold liquor for shit.
I want to reiterate that I think The Wire is a great show, and I do still like season 2 a lot, but it's stupid and pointless shit like this that makes me put season 2 as one of my least favorite in the show. If I had to give some kind of analysis or reason for why the writers put this in the show, I would say that maybe the whole Ziggy and his duck thing is an analogy for how Ziggy isn't really built for a life of crime, but yet is still trying to be a criminal, just like how the duck isn't built to handle all of that alcohol and the environment that serves it. So it's unknowingly drinking the poison that will eventually lead to its demise. The same way Ziggy trying to make it big in the drug game will surely lead to his demise. That's the best I got. This is real bottom of the barrel stuff here. While Ziggy and Nikki are having a beef over Ziggy feeling that Nikki doesn't respect him because, well, yeah, why would he? Ziggy makes a plan with Greek George to get him some stolen cars. Ziggy ends up going through with his plan to steal the cars for Greek George without Nikki, and it actually goes off without a hitch. The problem is that when Ziggy meets up with George to get his money for the caper, George lowballs him on the price and beats Ziggy's ass when Ziggy tries to press him on it.
Please.
Malaka.
In the moment, this felt like it sort of came out of nowhere. Like Ziggy was the last person that I expected to actually go and kill somebody in this show. I think we're all a lot closer to doing something drastic like this in our own lives than we might like to admit. A lot of people work jobs where they're constantly disrespected, or have a home or school life where they're constantly the butt of the joke. And everyone has a breaking point. After an entire season of disrespect, and probably a lifetime of disrespect that we didn't even get to see, Ziggy finally snapped, and it was probably one of the worst possible outcomes. Ziggy's confession to Jay Landsman is heartbreaking, but Frank finding out from Nicky was even more so.
What the fuck is Ziggy doing anywhere near the fucking Greeks?
I don't know, I don't.
You don't know, you're supposed to, you're his fucking cousin!
You're his father.
Episode 11 starts with the cops raiding the Greeks' warehouse and a few other places of interest connected to the Greeks and the docks. Specifically, Nicky's home, which Nicky was not in at the time because he was out drunkenly hooking up with some girl from him and Ziggy's childhood the night before. He returns to his house after the raid to find his devastated parents picking up the pieces of their destroyed home. Nicky's father tells Nicky that there's a warrant out for his arrest and he needs to turn himself in as soon as possible. The cops also get Sergey, Eton, and they get one of the Greeks' local dealers named White Mike. And of course, we get the pettiest arrest of all time when Stan Valchek finally gets to be the one to put the cuffs on Frank Sobotka and then waits for the news and tabloid cameras to get to the docks before taking him out to the car. And it's in this episode where we also have Frank's final conversation with his son Ziggy.
What happened? I don't know. I got tired. Got tired of being a punchline to every joke.
You had problems, you could have come to me. Could have said something.
You wouldn't have heard. You were always too busy dredging up the canal, making sure the right bum got elected, buying another round for the house. When I seen what I did to that kid down at the store, it made me sick to my stomach.
That ain't you, Zig.
It ain't.
I think this conversation between Frank and Ziggy is arguably the saddest moment of the season for me. And it was also when I realized that even though I didn't like Ziggy as a character, I was still invested in his story and still felt unbelievably bad for him and his whole family. Frank ends up going back to the office and meets with his lobbyist about the Grand Pier, but his lobbyist tells him that the Grand Pier is dead because no one wants to back Frank and the union now that he's dirty. Which, I mean, yeah, Frank, come on, how did you not see that coming? And this is when Frank drops arguably the most important line of the season.
You know what the trouble is, Brucey? We used to make shit in this country, build shit. Now we just put our hand in the next guy's pocket.
While speaking with the police, Frank agrees to give up the Greeks, but Rhonda Perlman informs him that he needs an attorney present, so they agree to meet tomorrow to settle this. That's the thing about tomorrow. Wait too long, and sometimes tomorrow never comes. Unfortunately for Frank, Nicky also happened to have a meeting of his own, but not with the cops. Nicky ends up meeting with Spiros and the Greeks, and they talk about a way for them to get Ziggy off for his crimes if Frank meets with them to discuss the terms of the deal and agrees to loyalty. Frank and Nicky have one last meeting where Nicky convinces Frank to renege on his deal with the cops and instead meet with the Greeks, but Frank tells Nicky not to come along and that he's going to meet them alone. As Frank is driving over to meet the Greeks, their inside man sees the info come through on his computer that Frank was entered into the cops' system as an informant, and the inside man calls the Greek to let him know about Frank's betrayal, which basically seals Frank's fate. Episode 12, the finale of Season 2, starts with Frank Sobotka's lifeless body washing up on the docks as we see every dock worker that we've come to know over the course of this season look on in horror. Frank Sobotka is dead, and in a way, the American dream is as well.
Me, I should have known better. I put you up with him for what? I flushed my fucking family for what? You know what that is, Nicky, do you? A condominium.
The episode ends with Nicky looking through the gate of the docks, just like his uncle did earlier in the season, and we see a montage of all the degrading aspects of Baltimore that we watched this season, hammering home once again just how deeply connected all of these issues are. And that's Season 2 of The Wire, the happiest story ever told. So, what are my final thoughts on Season 2 of The Wire? Well, the tragic downfall of the Sobotka clan is a story that I didn't really ask for and struggled to accept as the new focus of the show as I was watching, but by the end, I was fully invested in and so glad that the writers decided to tell. Despite it having some of the best moments and storytelling in the entire series, Season 2 is still arguably my least favorite season of the show. But again, that's not nearly the insult that it might come across as, because season 2 still has everything that makes The Wire great. And the story of the Sobotka family and all their struggles and turbulence, trying to make something of themselves in this modern world that no longer has any use for people like them, the true middle-class American worker, that is a story that was all too real 20 years ago, is all too real today, and if things don't change, will be all too real 20 years from now. But I think that's enough yapping for me. I can't wait to see what you guys think of this in the comments of this video. If you agree with me, if you disagree, if you have entirely new points that maybe I just completely missed, or anything else that you want to mention about the show, please put it down below. Season 3 is coming next, and that will definitely be an interesting one. I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.